Thank you so much. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for being here today for our Money Conversations webinar. We're going to be talking about how to teach budgeting skills to high mobility or migratory youth. Hi, my name is Milady Garcia, and I am here with FEP, and this webinar is a collaboration between FEP and the Migrant Education Program. I'm going to move on to the next slide here. So I want to share a little bit more about me. I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic. Currently, I work as the Special Populations Program Supervisor for FEP. And basically what that means is that I support financial education for our most underserved students, such as students in the Migratory Education Program. Before I started working with FEP, I worked in early childhood education. I have degrees in early childhood special education, early childhood education, and Spanish literature with an area of focus in Latin American studies. I worked in education for a while, but prior to working with FEP, I was working as an interpreter and translator. Something you should know about me in terms of my finances is that I am very, very frugal. If there is a sale, I will find it. I may not necessarily spend money, but I like sharing with people when there's a sale happening because I like saving money and I hate to see people pay full price for anything ever. So I am very, very frugal. I had to learn a few things about finances the hard way because my family, when I came to the United States from the Dominican Republic, was completely unbanked, not even underbanked, they were unbanked. And I had to learn about FAFSA when I wanted to go to college. I had to learn about scholarships, loans, interest rates, all on my own. But it was a valuable experience. That being said, if I can make that transition easier for others, I will do so. And gladly, that is what I do as part of my work. So I want to tell you briefly about our webinar today. We're going to be sharing, or I'm going to be sharing insights into how FEP supports our underserved students and education professionals working with migratory youth learn about personal finance skills, the skills to manage their money. We're going to share some strategies on how to have those difficult conversations because talking about money can often be a little bit sensitive and people can feel a certain way. And there are some barriers that kind of come up when we approach those conversations. And we're going to learn about free resources that I have identified that are completely free and available in English and Spanish that can help support the learning and extend it into the home. And we're going to explore some effective budgeting methods, right? Once they know about budgeting, how do they do it? And those methods are going to be also available in English and in Spanish through the resource that we're going to share. Now we're going to get started, right, with the meat of the webinar. And I have a question for you. The Migrant Education Program is 95% Latino. By the way, you can feel free to enter your answer in the chat for this question. How much money do you think Hispanic-owned businesses contribute to the U.S. economy yearly? I just saw the Zoom poll pop in, so you can go ahead and enter your answer there as well. How much money do Hispanic-owned businesses contribute to the U.S. economy yearly? We're not going to be graded on these, so it's okay. I saw someone answer C. It's a lot of money. Valeria, thank you for answering. I have one answer so far. Don't be shy. D, C, okay. A lot of C's, definitely. Okay, thank you. Thank you everyone for your participation. Okay, I'm gonna share the results here. Hold on. For those of you who answered D, we contribute $800 billion to the U.S. economy every year. That's right, Tanya. Tanya's celebrating. I was celebrating too. We are pretty powerful. We definitely are a driving force for the economy, and that's something to feel good about. And anything that I do, I like to do something that is motivational, inspirational at the beginning of the webinar because it kind of gets the juices flowing positively and it makes us feel our importance, right? We're consumers and we have a lot of power as consumers. We definitely drive this economy forward. So I have another fun question for you guys. What is the most common source of capital for the majority of Hispanic entrepreneurs? And you can, again, choose from one of the 4 available answers. I think it's going to be very interesting for me to see what your response is for this one. The reason why I chose this question is because a lot of Hispanics, when they transition, when they enter America for the first time and have to navigate our financial system, a lot of them decide to, start their own business because it's hard to find a job when you can't understand the economic system, the employment system. So I'm curious to see here. Okay. A lot of B's and C's. Okay, I'm going to give a few more seconds. I think that's all of us. And the correct answer is personal savings. Again, I find that so impactful because not only are we really hardworking, we're really great at saving money. When we have a goal and we get that in our minds, we are excellent at saving money to achieve our goals, to make our goals and our dreams a reality. I feel that is so impactful. And I'm like, yes, absolutely. I have a personal story. My mom opened a restaurant after living in New York for 10 years, and she had to use a lot of her personal savings to do it, but she also accessed loans and she made it happen. I was very proud. I'm still very proud of my mother for that. Last question. Nobody cheat on this one, please. What does FEPP, F-E-P-P-P, stand for? What does FEPP stand for? I'm going to give a few seconds for this one. I have Felipe with D, Armando with D. You know what I just realized, guys? It's there under my name. So I didn't think that one through. I feel like I gave it away. That's right. It's definitely D. We are the Financial Education Public-Private Partnership. I wanted to highlight that because a lot of people, it is a long acronym. There's 3 P's in there. And it is a hard one to remember. So I said, if I put it maybe like in the form of a question and make different options available, they'll maybe remember it. Okay. So I told you a little bit about me, my background. I want to tell you a little bit about FEPP, the agency I work with. We were created by legislatures that recognize the importance of financial education as a life skill for our K-12 students. We basically provide financial education, professional development to our educators and now other education professionals such as yourselves that are having meaningful, impactful communications with our students so that you feel confident and comfortable teaching financial education. And the other part of our work is to identify financial education instructional materials. So curriculums to teach this content, lessons, videos, simulation units, anything that is high quality. We focus on prioritizing resources that are available in more than one language because we have a very diverse student population, not only in the migratory education program, but in all of K-12 in Washington State. And we also bring together public and private stakeholders to promote the work that we do and support financial education in Washington State. And the way that we do that, we know that there is no one-size-fits-all approach that ever works. It doesn't work. So to provide effective financial education, we focus on a more holistic approach where we try to analyze and look at the different factors that impact financial well-being. And it goes beyond professional development and high-quality instructional material. There is a social emotional component to that, right? Talking about money, spending money. It brings up feelings, right? And they're tied to our ability to reflect before we make a purchase. Do I want to buy something because it's going to make me feel good in that moment? Is this purchase going to get me closer to my savings goal or not? Do I have the ability to have that self-awareness and self-management to stop myself if I know my budget I cannot afford to make this expense at this time? Am I able to stop or not? That's part of social emotional learning and social emotional awareness. It is a big component of financial decision making. But of course, cultural relevance, understanding how our values, our belief systems make us reflect on the financial decisions that we make. It impacts the financial decision that we make, whether we come from a collectivistic culture or an individualistic culture. These are all important factors that impact our relationship with money and our overall financial habits. So this is just a visual. I really like it because it does a great job at showing just how holistically we consider financial well-being. Now we're going to start by talking about, again, how money makes us feel and how financial decisions make us feel. How did your first financial decision make you feel? You can feel free to unmute if you want, or put the answer in the chat. I want to hear from you guys. I value your input in this webinar. I can tell you for myself, the first big financial decision that I made was applying for college. I'm the first person in my family to attend a college in America, the first one to fill out a FAFSA, the first one to apply for student loans, and it was scary. I was excited because I know my family was proud. I was proud of myself too, but if I have to choose one of these 4 answers, then you don't have to. You could just, reflect if you felt differently than any of these. I was definitely C. I was overwhelmed. I was confused. And it was scary. And I know that for a lot of youth, not necessarily because they're going to school, many of them, especially in the programs that you support, may be kind of disengaged from the education system, but they're still facing that transition into adulthood, maybe moving out on their own for the first time, maybe making a big purchase like buying a car for the first time and not understanding those car rate loans and all that kind of thing can be really scary. And that's the reality for a lot of youth, whether they're in the migratory program, where they're out of school youth or not. They could be white, black, it doesn't matter. We have data that shows that 74% of teens reported they don't feel confident in their personal finance knowledge and skills. And it's because they're not receiving financial education instruction in school. Additionally, the majority of out-of-school youth come from low-income backgrounds, and they traditionally are low-income families and communities, traditionally due to systemic inequities in the financial system and systemic inequities in the education system. They are also left out of financial education. They're not giving all the resources and opportunities to access resources and tools that they need to achieve financial stability and financial advancement. Now, another significant piece of data that I want to share with you is that 75% of young people get their financial advice from their parents. This is, again, in general, not just young people in the migratory education program. Most youth get their advice from their parents. This is good, but in the case of older immigrants that were born in other countries outside of the United States, we know that they often do not have all the knowledge about the financial system in the United States. Again, many of them could be unbanked or underbanked and unaware of different services and resources that can help them achieve financial advancements. So if our youth are going to their parents, which traditionally we're really excited about because our parents have our best interest at heart, except for when they don't have the right information. If our youth are going to their parents to receive information and the parents doesn't have that information, then it's gonna perpetuate the cycle of not having enough, not knowing what's out there for me to access resources and tools that can help me achieve financial success. And this can lead to serious financial struggles as adults, right? Not knowing how to maneuver the resources that are available to us can have a definite negative impact, because when our parents don't have the answers, usually they go to the internet. And let me tell you, there's a lot of misinformation online about not only finances, but about other things as well. So a lot of people don't like to say the word budget. It's kind of like the B word. It's almost a bad word because they feel triggered. So we call a budget a spending plan or plan for your money for people who are asset limited or not making enough to meet their needs and the mandatory expenses. It can definitely be a very touchy, sensitive subject. So another way of saying budget is a spending plan. And a budget can help us understand, basically, if we need to cut back on expenses or not, if we have enough money coming in or earnings to meet most of our expenses, hopefully all of our expenses. It can also be used as a tool to tell your money where to go instead of having our money kind of tell us where it's going and running out of money by the end of the month. So it's really useful. It can also help us plan for the future. Once we're able to start making money, which I know that a lot of the students that you're working with may already be employed, they're already having an income. It's important for them to have skills, right? And habits on how to manage that income that they have in order to buy and accomplish their future goals, right? It's not just, buying these nice clothes and these nice shoes and eating out all the time, getting the latest technology. What about things that kind of take a little bit more discipline because we have to save a little more? Buying that first car, renting your first apartment, if they kind of want to branch out on their own, buying tools for work. Also, if they're interested in higher education, kind of affording that for themselves. And always very good to remember, financial shocks are coming, right? It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Your car may break down, it needs repairs, that's coming, some of that is gonna come out of your money, out of your pocket, even if you have insurance, right? If you own a home, there's appliances that are gonna break down, there's things that are gonna need repair. You may lose your employment because the company you work with goes under. Any number of things can happen. And they are unplanned. They don't ask for your permission. Hey, is this a convenient time for this to happen? No, they're just coming. And having money saved for emergencies gives us the ability to have a lot more stability to make or withstand those financial shocks without going into undue stress or going into debt, which would be just as bad. And the golden rule, I like to say, the golden rule of budgeting: spend less than you make. One thing that I shared during the Migrant Education Conference that I attended, I always like to ask people, do you know that 78% of pro athletes file for bankruptcy within 3 years of retirement? And that 1 in every 5 lottery winners, or 1 in every 3 lottery winners actually, files for bankruptcy in 5 years of winning their lottery, because they can't stick to that rule. Don't spend more than you make. If you spend more than you make, it doesn't matter if you're making 5 million a day. If you spend 5,000,000,001 a day, you're going to be broke. Whereas a person who's making a very moderate income, if they're able to be frugal and save and just plan really well for their expenses, they could have a significant amount of money saved and start their own businesses if that's what they want. So let's get into, how do we start these financial conversations, right? It's delicate, it is sensitive, it is emotional, and it is personal. We can start reflecting on this question, and this is something that I like to do when I'm talking to people about money. It's not so much getting into the nitty-gritty of figures like, oh, how much money are you making right now? That's a little too heavy, right, for the beginning. We can just start it by asking, what does money mean to you? Right? And they could give you some kind of like generic answer. Oh, money is power. Okay, what do you want the power to do? What is that power? We can ask those follow-up questions until we kind of get to the more personal stuff. If you were to ask me right now, for me, money gives me the ability to see family and maintain those family connections. I'm the only person in my family that lives in Washington State. I moved from New York City 2 years ago. Air flights back and forth are expensive. I have young nephews that always expect gifts from auntie, so it's gonna be expensive to go back home. And if I go to DR, it's even more money, to the Dominican Republic, where I'm originally from. So for me, if I'm being honest, having the ability to afford traveling to see my family in my budget, it just enables me to maintain that connection that is so important to me. Being able to share that personal experience like I just did with you guys brings down the barriers, because again, it can be uncomfortable to talk about money, especially if our students kind of see us as, you're this adult that has it all together. You're not going to understand the struggles that I have or the struggles that my family has, because you're driving a nice car and you have it all together. You're a professional, you're making good money. It may not have been the case always. I know for me it was not, and I have my financial journeys. There's been a lot of bumps on the road. If we feel comfortable enough to share that with our students, it can be very impactful. If we feel comfortable enough to share some of those financial missteps that we might have made along the way, it can be extremely impactful, and it can bring that barrier down where they just kind of see us as a relatable person, somebody who they identify, somebody who understands their experience, right? So those are some of the techniques that I want to share with you when we're having those budgeting conversations. Once we're able to establish that trust, which is so important, to get to the more meaningful part of this, then we can ask about financial goals, right? Then we can say, okay, so I understand that money is this to you. Now we've built this rapport. I want you guys to have the courage to ask, what are your financial goals? If if you had the ability to achieve your goals, what would those be? Is it to buy a car? Is it to continue to send a certain amount of money back home if that's something that they're doing? Is it to help your sister go to college? Is it for you yourself to pursue not financial, higher education? Is it for you to start your own business? And it's so important for us to believe in that dream that they share. Wherever we set the bar, they're gonna try to meet it. So let's make sure that we focus also on their strengths so we can motivate and empower them to see themselves so they believe that they are capable of achieving that goal. Oh, yeah, I can buy my car, I can start saving. Again, especially if your youth are already working or have any type of income coming in, it is so important to let them know, hey, you're already doing half the work, right? You're already having your money coming in. If you just learn these skills, you'll be able to achieve your financial goals. You'll be able to put money aside and buy that car or rent that apartment or whatever that goal may be. I focus on that because I feel like for most teenagers, like that very first big expense usually is buying that car or living on their own and getting away from mom and dad for whatever reason. I wish now that I'm away from my mom and dad, I wish I could go back because I miss them so much. It's weird how things kind of come full circle like that. So I wanted to share those tips with you, and I want to pause for a second and ask you guys if you have any questions at this point before I proceed. Okay, I'm going to keep going then. So the next thing we want to focus on is prioritizing needs and savings versus wants. It would have taken up too much space in the screen, so I just put needs versus wants. So basically, the concept of prioritizing needs versus wants is helping when we're looking at our budget, helping our youth understand that we have to prioritize or focus all of our energy first and foremost on fixed mandatory expenses. And our fixed mandatory expenses are going to be, of course, mortgage or rent, right? Utilities, our insurance, those are going to, food, the things that we need to live, right? And those are also obligations. What happens if you don't pay your rent or your mortgage? You get kicked out of your house, right? What happens if you don't pay your utilities? You're pretty much out of power. So these are expenses that should always, when we're looking at our budget, should always be prioritized and focused on first. Are those things that are essential for our well-being, right? After that, a lot of people will say, well, after that, you can focus on your wants, and those are going to be non-essential expenses like eating out with friends. I say focus on saving money, especially when they're this young, because a lot of our students may not have positive financial habits of saving, and they might. But if they are already doing it, we want to reinforce it and say, great job. You're doing exactly what you should do at this age, which is save money for the future. If they're not, we want them to start now and start having those positive financial habits that are going to enable them to achieve their future goals for themselves, right? So after you're able to meet your needs and mandatory expenses, definitely put as much money aside for savings as you can. I don't focus on wants because honestly, they're gonna do it anyways. They're gonna go out with friends and eat. They're gonna, whenever they can, they're gonna get the phone that they want and stuff like that. We don't have to convince them to do that. They're gonna do that on their own. But it is important to say, and I will say, we cannot be super strict with our budget because we have to have a little enjoyment in life. It's okay to go out with friends every once in a while. It's just important to not always order the most expensive item on the menu, for example, right? But definitely prioritizing needs and savings over everything else is my approach. And one way we can help them remember that is the 60-10-30 budgeting method. There are a lot of different versions of this out there. There's the 50-30-20 rule, and that basically says 50% of your expenses should go to mandatory expenses or needs, 30% for wants, and then only 20% for savings. And I'm like, nope. I don't want them to spend 30% of their income on wants. I want them to prioritize savings over once as much as possible. So my personal favorite is the 60-10-30 rule. So basically what this means is 60% of their income is going to go towards mandatory expenses, like we explained, rent, utilities, insurance payments. 10% is going to be the wants or the creature comforts, going out, buying, a few things that we might want but not necessarily need. And then 30% for future goals. And a big part of the future goals are, again, going to be saving for emergencies, because those are happening. They could lose a job, they could have an accident and not be able to collect insurance money, whatever the case may be. Those emergencies are coming, giving them the opportunity to face those financial shocks without going into debt, without having to reach for a credit card, is so important. And again, we want to create those positive financial habits as early as we can. So with that in mind, I want to share with you a great financial education resource. It's called consumer.gov. And I'm going to read a little bit about this because I want to get it right. This resource is for 9 to 12 graders. It is also for adults. So if you want to use this not only for your youth, but for their families and their communities, you can. It is free. It is available in English and Spanish, and it comes from the Federal Trade Commission, FTC. Before I started working in financial education, I had no idea what the FTC was, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. It is a federal agency whose mission is protecting the public from deceptive or unfair business practices. The FTC created this, consumer.gov, a free and practical financial education resource to help improve consumers' financial skills. It uses plain language to explain financial concepts simply and foundationally, so users with varying degrees of financial knowledge can benefit. Basically, what that means is it doesn't matter if you have zero financial knowledge or if you have extensive financial knowledge. You're going to find something here that's going to help you start understanding and building those foundational financial, personal finance knowledge, skills, tools that you need to make good financial decisions for you and your family. I like this resource also because it addresses the experiences of immigrants and people who are newcomers to America. So it doesn't assume that you already know what credit is. A lot of us, I come from a country that wasn't credit reliant. At least when I lived there, I didn't know what credit was. Nobody used it, right? We didn't really rely on that. If you wanted to buy something, you saved money, you bought it, right? For many people, it is kind of unnatural to think that going into debt is actually going to be a good way of paying for stuff. So again, it teaches those financial skills for people who are new to the country so that they can start understanding how our financial system works. It is available in English and in Spanish, and I have a great video to share with you that comes from this resource, consumer.gov. This video will be played in English, but it is also available in English and in Spanish. Please give me a thumbs up on the screen if you can hear it.
Every month, Michael ran out of money just before payday. He had to skip paying some bills and pay some bills late. He hated that. So Michael decided to make a budget to see if it would help him pay his bills when they were due. He wrote on a budget worksheet how much money he made each month. Then Michael looked at what he spent last month. He used those expenses to write what he thought he would spend this month. His expenses were higher than his income, which he knew, but now he knew where his money went. He started cutting. He cut money for eating out, movie tickets, and other things he wanted, but couldn't afford all the time. That solved the problem and even gave him $50 extra for the month. He put $10 back in his budget to rent movies, and he saved the rest. That month, Michael carefully followed his budget. If he spent more in one budget area, he cut from another. He had enough money to pay all his bills on time, Michael felt much better with a budget.
Okay.
Every
Oops,
month,
sorry. Trying to move forward past this video here. Give me 1 second. Okay. So that brings us to the budgeting worksheet that you saw as part of that video. I want to ask you guys, how many of you use like an old school budgeting template to make your budget each month? Or if you're not using it currently, if you've used one in the past, if you could put Y for yes and for no in the chat, I'd really appreciate it, just to see how many of you are familiar with this budgeting method. Okay. Okay, awesome. So we're going to be learning some new stuff here today. I really appreciate. Thank you for your participation. So this is basically a budgeting template. It is very low tech. I like that. It can be high tech because the template, again, is part of the resource I just shared with you from consumer.gov. It is also available in English and in Spanish. What you're seeing right now is in English, but you can have it in Spanish as well. And this is a very simple to use technique where basically you're going to put the month, you're going to put the year, and you're going to first focus on how much money you have coming in, right? So that's going to be not only your money, and I should make this clear, you're going to put your money from your paycheck after deductions. So if your gross income is $800, we're not going to put $800. We're going to put, once the insurance has been taken out, once taxes have been taken out, everything, then you're going to tell me if it's $678, that's what we're going to focus on, your net income, right? After deductions. If you receive any income, let's say it's November, happy November, everyone. It's the first Monday of November, by the way. If you have a November birthday and your brother decided to be generous and send you $100, that's income. You're going to put it in that column and you're going to add that up, right? The next part of this is you focusing on your expenses for the month, right? So we already shared a little bit about expenses, going to be your rent or mortgage, any insurance, your utilities, food expenses, eating out, anything at all. If you went to the movies, anything at all that you spend money on, that's going to be under expenses. You're going to add up that total, and then you're going to subtract your expenses from your income. Hopefully, you'll have a positive number, right? So you'll have more money coming in than what your expenses are. Now, if that's not the case, don't panic. Our friend Michael, I think in the video, had a similar problem. The beauty of a budget is when you see it in black and white like this and it's detailed, you're able to start cutting up certain things, cutting out rather, certain things that you know you can cut out. Like if you're eating out too much, if you're spending too much money on discretionary, whatever the case may be, going to the movies too much, you can do that because you can see where you're spending money that you really don't need to spend. And it kind of gives you that power back to take charge of your financial situation when you're able to see where your money's going. So this is one way that we can kind of keep track of the money we have coming in and the money we have going out. And this is also a digital, I don't know if I said this already, it is also a digital resource. So you can print this out, but you can also fill it out online if you'd rather. Now, the other budgeting method that I want to share with you, it is very old school, is the envelope budgeting method. Basically, what you do is you take a bunch of envelopes, you give every envelope a job, right? So you're going to have one envelope where you're going to put the money for the rent, money for food, another envelope, money for utilities, another envelope, money for discretionary spending. Every envelope is going to have a job to do. The reason why I like this, even though it is low tech and old school, I find that youth nowadays are having a really hard time keeping track of expenses because they're swiping either a debit card, prepaid card, credit card. It's hard to see your money disappear because this little piece of plastic is not telling you. It's just very convenient to just kind of swipe or add to the card when you're on whatever online shopping platform you prefer. This kind of makes it so that you can see your money kind of dwindling and disappearing as you're spending. It is very old school. I do not recommend this, I should say, for people who are not living in situations where they feel safe keeping money at home. Because you would have to kind of have your money physically with you, physically put the money in the envelope and physically have to make these payments from these envelopes so that you create awareness of, oh my God, this is how much money is disappearing as I pay for these bills. It makes it a lot more personal, and it creates a little bit more of attachment to the money that makes you reflect before you just kind of go off and spend. Now, this is also available. It is very low tech. There is an app available from Good Budget, and I have the website there. It can be digital and it is free. If you're interested in doing this, linking it to your any type of financial institutions you have, either credit union or bank account or any payment app that you have, you can link it to that. They give you about 20 envelopes that are free. After that, I think you do have to pay, but it's pretty cool to have that option of having these free envelopes that are digital and kind of keep your money a little bit more safe. Again, it might be complicated if our youth are not banked. If they are not even having a mobile bank or have any payment apps, it can be a little trickier. If they feel safe keeping money at home, this can be another great method for them to kind of start understanding how money quickly disappears when you're not keeping track of it. It gives us a lot more accountability for money, and it assigns every dollar a job. Right? Once we put it in an envelope, that's the only expense we're going to use it for. That's what we're going to use it for. As the money disappears from an envelope, that's it. If it's gone, if you used up all the money for your discretionary expense, you can't take out from the rent to go out and go to the movies. It's gone. It kind of helps you create that discipline, and it makes you aware that, hey, going into debt just to go to the movies is not a good thing. I'd rather just kind of wait for either having more money to be able to afford going to the movies or going shopping, whatever I want to do. But just be aware of how easily money is spent. Now, when we're having these conversations, you may find that some of the youth are already pretty good at this stuff. One of the things that people are always surprised by is that when people have a limited income, they're really good about stretching a dollar. They're really good about making a budget and sticking to it because they don't have a choice, right? They have to be good at it. So you may have students that are like, yeah, I already know how to do this. And in that case, what we want to do is help them get even better. We're going to give them tips and tricks to help them stick to a budget or just kind of focus on their financial goal. And one of the things is stop and think before you make a purchase. This is also something that I do, to be completely honest, because if I don't, you get to a certain position where you're like, I can afford this. And before you know it, you kind of spend a little more than you wanted to. It happens to us too, right? Before I make a purchase, I ask myself, can I afford it? Do I have room in my budget for this purchase? If the answer is no, it's going back. It's like, nope, I'm not even going to go on Amazon right now. Is this something that I need, or is it something that I want? That's not to say that if it's just a want, I'm not going to do it, because again, you don't want to be too strict. We have to enjoy life. But if I don't have room in my budget, and I start negotiating like we do, because I'm great at negotiating with myself, I'll go like, hey, I can buy it if I just don't go out with my friends this month. I don't have room, but I'm going to make room. And these are the kind of things that we do with ourselves. It's like, okay, but do I need it or do I want it? If I don't need it, I may not negotiate. I'm going to leave that negotiating for something else, right? Just so we still kind of develop that good, positive financial habit of not giving in to buying for everything that we want. And then the other thing that we can consider is this going to help me get closer to my financial goal or set me back? Because there are some things that I'm willing to negotiate with if I'm starting my own business and this is a tool that I need for my business and it just went on sale. I might go ahead and buy it. Why? Because it's going to make me more money. This financial decision to spend is going to build my money in the long run. Okay, you can say, well, in that case, I think I can kind of figure something out with my budget and cut back on something else so I can afford this. But if it's going to set me back and it's not something that I need, it's not something that I can afford, I'm probably just going to say, you know what? I don't need this right now. This is really going to be bad for my pocketbook. Now, this is something that I absolutely do all the time. If it's a big expense, I use the 24-hour rule. Basically, what the 24-hour rule is waiting 24 hours before making a purchase over $50, that's a big expense to me. If it's $50 or more, I'm not buying it right then and there. I'm gonna wait, I'm gonna sleep on it. And the next day I come back, you know what? I find that I don't really want to buy it anymore. Why is that, do you think? It's mostly because, again, I was just bored. I realized that, yeah, it's convenient, or I just saw an infomercial for it. I got influenced by a TikTok blogger or something in there influenced me. And I was able to kind of think about it and decide, wait a minute, I have a blender already. Just because this one's faster and blends things faster, I don't need another blender. Just having that ability to pause, think, and reflect can save you money. It has saved me a considerable amount of money. People who are marketers are really good at getting us to buy things. And they are counting on our impulse buying to just click, buy it with one click, buy with one click, buy with one click. They're making it very, very easy for us to consume their products and to buy without thinking. They're counting on it. They're banking on it. We are making, like I said, that we're putting 800 billions in the economy because we're doing these kinds of things, right? So just having the ability to kind of hit pause, think for a moment, and come back the next day, decide if we really want it or not. And it's good to do that with any big expense. For me, again, big is $50, but again, I'm frugal. Full disclosure, you're learning a lot about me during this webinar today. Now, there's a special consideration that I want to mention for our out of school youth that have kind of like inconsistent income. They don't know what their income may be month to month. For them, making a budget can be a little challenging, right? One of the things that we want to make sure that our youth understand is that having specialized training can really lead to higher income. And higher income leads to financial stability. Now, I want to be very clear. I am not saying every youth needs to go to college. I don't believe college is for everyone. I also don't believe in discouraging anyone from going to college. If that's their path, that's wonderful. We want to encourage them. We want to be supportive of whatever their goal is. That being said, I want you to look at this visual here and compared to a high school dropout. Someone who's completing a high school diploma is making significantly more money. Now, if we add to that someone with a certificate or license, apprenticeship program, any type of certification where it says and shows you gained the skill to do something that the majority of the population does not know how to do, you're going to make twice as much as a high school dropout. That's a life-changing amount of money. That can really help you achieve your financial goals long term, not just those short-term goals with buying a car or getting some tool. No, this is going to change your life. If we're struggling to engage our youth, if we're struggling to have them stay in school and at least complete a high school diploma and graduate, this visual is pretty impactful, I find. I've shown this to family members who I know are kind of contemplating, oh, school's not for me. I don't really like it. I don't like getting up early. This kind of information is the kind of information that kind of makes them think twice. I'm not going to say not all of them have made the decision to stay in school. Many of them have. And it's just about making money. It's just about making them aware your life is going to be a lot more fun and interesting and easy if you're able to get specialized training for something. Thank you, Vanessa, for attending the webinar today. So again, I wanted to just bring your attention to this. It's another communication strategy to help our youth see how staying in school can potentially lead to significantly more income. And I hope you were able to see my passion for this topic today. It's because I know it's the right thing to do, is to educate our youth on personal finance information, personal finance knowledge, because it's a life skill that improves their life overall. But there's also research that supports it. Like, we have research that shows that financial habits and behaviors are improved with financial education. And those impacts are even more significant for students that come from low-income families. So our disadvantaged students, our low-income students, those are the students that benefit most from receiving financial education. So I want you guys to feel empowered. If you feel ready to start having those conversations with the youth that you serve, it's going to make a difference. It is going to make a positive difference in their lives. So I want to visit here some key takeaways, right, from a budget or a spending plan, since that's a word or a term that has fallen out of favor. It helps us understand our relationship with money. It helps us understand if we are in the habit of spending money or if we're in the habit of saving money. It also helps us establish those financial habits. If we're not savers yet, right? I like that growth mindset. If we're not there yet, we can't. You know, it's like a muscle. If you work it, it will grow. If you practice the habit of saving, it will become second nature. You may not be a saver right now, but you can become a saver. And basically what that enables us to do is face those financial emergencies, be able to withstand those financial shocks that are coming, that are part of life, that we never know when they're going to befall us. And I'm not trying to be doom and gloom. I'm just trying to be realistic. These are things that are going to happen. But on a positive note, it can help us achieve our financial goals, right? Being able to track the money we have coming in and see the expenses that we have, whether we need to cut back on those or not to meet those savings goals that we set for ourselves is so empowering, right? And it can help us achieve those goals that I know we can achieve. So I want to remind you guys, thank you, first of all, for your time and attention today for this webinar. We have another webinar on this 4-webinar series on December 9th, and we're going to be focusing on banking for migratory youth and communities. We're going to have a representative from HAPO Credit Union answer some questions on services that they offer for migratory or high mobility families. If you have any questions at this point, I'm going to stop. And it's been an honor and a privilege to have the opportunity to provide this webinar for you today. Thank you so much. I have my email also if you want to follow up with an email. But this is what I have for you today, and I hope that you guys join us for the next webinar. Thank you for attending, Tanya. I really appreciate your attention today and your participation. Thank you, Maida. Thank you so much. I also want to ask you guys to, if you're able to join us on December 9th, to report back if you're able to implement any of these techniques, approaching these budgeting conversations with your youth. What were some growths or glows that you had, some barriers that you faced? I always want to hear back. I strongly want to hear back from you guys and see if you have had success in implementing any of these strategies. I would love to learn more about the work that you do as well.